ATP, what it do with your boy Clayton Walt Rain? Back at you guys with another one. Salute to all my subscribers. If this is your first time tapping into the content, I do invite you to go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit your bell icon next to the subscribe button so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. And of course, please remember to give us a thumbs up before the end of this video. Well, we're here. It's fight week, and we're a few days away from seeing Richardson Hitchins defend his IBF title against George Kambosos. Yes, George Kambosos. Let's talk about it. George Kambosos moves up from 135 pounds up to the 140-pound division with one fight under his belt at the 140-pound weight class division. Has found himself in position once again for another big fight for a payday for a title. This time at the 140-pound weight class division against, yes, none other than Richardson Hitchins. Richardson Hitchins been looking for a fight to get himself in the conversation of getting into the biggest fights in the game for a while now, right? Now, you guys recall 2 fights ago, Richardson Hitchins fought against Gustavo Lemos. Looked pedestrian in that fight. A lot of people thought that he lost that fight, but was able to come out on the other side of that fight with a victory. Which was an IBF eliminator fight. Now, at the time, the IBF champion was Subriel Matias, so the fight that people thought that Richard Hitchinson was going to be getting ready to fight next. Richardson Hitchins, at the end of that fight that he had with Gustavo Lemos, started to reconsider his position as far as choosing to fight for an IBF title. Now, keep in mind at that time, Richardson Hitchins was sitting about number 2 or number 3 in the WBC ranking, so in the conversations, nonetheless, to fight against Devin Haney at the time, who was holding a WBC title, which he had just pulled off a Regis program. So weighing out his option, Richardson Hitchins has shown that he's had issues with the rehydration clause of the IBF title and was willing to entertain fighting Devin Haney if that was what was going to be on the table. Seeing Devin Haney go through what he went through with Ryan Garcia, becoming a champion in recess, he had to reconsider his options. And at that point, Subriel Matias had a fight scheduled at the time with Liam Paro, a fight that we all know, history shows, hindsight is 2020, that Liam Paro was able to take that title off of Subriel Matias, outbox Subriel Matias, and ultimately Hitchins, being next in line, took advantage of the opportunity to take the Australian on and get himself a title, won the fight pretty convincingly, and became the IBF champion. But still, Hitchins, dealing with that IBF and that rehydration clause, was still looking to strategically maneuver his way into a position to where he can get around the IBF clause. How do you do that? You do that by unifying. So pursuing fights with the likes of Teofimo Lopez at the time, who is the current WBO champion and was a WBO champion at that time, and maybe even looking at some other champions in the division, or looking for a fight that made sense where the fighter he's going to fight probably wasn't as big, or he wasn't going to face as much adversity in fighting against that fighter under a potential depleted position. Now, let's take it back one step, and just to get you guys up to speed, if you don't know, Richard Hitchins did go ahead and hire a nutritionist to fight against Liam Paro, right? So now the weight cut not being that much of an issue, this is something he blamed for his performance against Gustavo Lemos, seeming to have the weight cut under control, being able to come into the ring energized, and although it's a little bit of an uphill battle, something he can manage, decided let's put it to the test. I'm looking to get involved in unification fights still, but I want to stay busy. Eddie Hearns takes George Kambosos, signs George Kambosos to Matchroom Boxing on Promotions, and convinces George Kambosos to go ahead and make a move up to 140 pounds, where he has himself a tune-up fight. A fight, in my opinion, where George Kambosos looked pedestrian, right? He looked regular. He won the fight with nothing special. Needless to say, at the back end of winning that fight, would it be blasphemy to say that he earned a title shot with Richardson Hitchins? Either way, Eddie Hearn was able to bring both those fighters who were under the Matchroom banner into a situation to where we are now, where Hitchins will be fighting George Kambosos, a fighter whose last 4 fights he has arguably lost, right? Now, he lost twice to Devin Haney, twice in his own home city, lost his titles. Keep in mind, George Kambosos on his resume does have a Teofimo win, but he lost both those fights against Devin Haney. then came back, had a fight against Maxi Hughes for an IBO title, which most people feel like Maxi Hughes beat him, but he was, you can say, gifted or had that victory. And then of course we all saw him get stopped by Vasily Lomachenko to lose that fight, which had a vacant IBF title that time on the line, as well as an IBO championship that he brought into the fight. Now, off the back end of a loss, pulled up to 140 to get himself a quick little tune-up victory, is going to go ahead and give Richardson Hitchins an opportunity to get a name like George Kambosos on his resume. Now, why is this an important fight for Richardson Hitchins? Well, this fight right here gives him a common opponent with Teofimo Lopez, and common opponent with Vasily Lomachenko, even though Vasily Lomachenko has officially retired a week or so back. Regardless, putting a fighter, probably going to be the fighter who's most decorated and has the best resume, and something that's going to give Richard Hitchins' resume some, what's the word I'm looking for? Give his resume some credibility, right? Something that to move forward with into trying to coordinate a fight, if you ask me, either with Teofimo Lopez or with Devin the Dream Haney. But it all starts with this fight here against George Kambosos. Now, on paper, one might say that Richard Hitchins looks like should be able to take George Kambosos. He is the more natural 140 pounder. Has been there for the while, for the longer time. Is the champion in the division. George Kambosos really, like as I said, his last 4 fights have not been stunning, very pedestrian, and he's having George Kambosos come and fight him in his own backyard here in Brooklyn, New York. So Hitchins has all the cards on his side, but still needs to take his time as he approaches this fight and make sure he takes it seriously. One would say that Richard Hitchins looks like he is potentially looking past George Kambosos, right? Being that he feels like he should be able to beat him easy based off the fact that he's lost damn near his last 4 fights. But listen, George Kambosos is a live underdog, right? And if Hitchins decides to change his game plan from who he actually is to become somebody else, this could spell disaster for Richardson Hitchins, right? This being not only his first title defense, but also the next fight is going to be bigger than this fight. Yesterday's price will not be today's price if Richardson Hitchins is able to turn this around in the right way. So which Hitchins will show up on Saturday? Will it be the Hitchins who stays behind his jab, who is the boxer, who will take his time and win these rounds and be willing to go to 12 rounds and get himself a unanimous decision? Or does this Hitchins feels a little pressure to overperform? Stop Kambosos if you can, hurt Kambosos, dominate and show the boxing space that there are multiple wrinkles to his game, and to put the rest of the boxing space on full notice. That's up to Hitchins, right? If you listen to Hitchins speak right now, this is what he sounds like he's saying. He plans on stepping on George Kambosos. He bet George Kambosos $50,000 that he would stop him. I mean, obviously he could be talking and just trying to sell the fight, but at the same exact time, if he's drinking his own Kool-Aid, will Hitchins be able to follow up and execute on that game plan? Or is he writing himself a check that he can't cash? Something that will potentially give George Kambosos every opportunity he can have to win this fight. As much as a difficult fight as this is probably going to be for George Kambosos, Hitchins can make it easier for George Kambosos, and he's a live enough dog to take advantage of it. So I'm eager to see what Hitchins is going to do. Everything on the back end of this fight, a victory on the back end of this fight, spells a whole lot of opportunities for Hitchins. Eddie Hearns is looking for Hitchins to show the game, confirm, validate, show and prove that he is here and that he is one of the top, if not the top 140 pounder in the weight class division, and leave Eddie Hearn to go do the rest, to go make the biggest fights possible in the division. Devin Haney and Bill Haney recently dropped a hit list, and Bill Haney communicated that Richardson Hitchins was a honorable mention fight that they wanted to get involved with. Now, I'm sure this fight would end up happening either at a catchweight or in the welterweight division. Hitchins recently did an interview with Najee from Cigar Talk, stating that he'd entertain going up to 147, not only for Devin Haney, but for the likes of Brian Norman Jr. and fights like that he believes that he'll be able to do well in at 147 pounds. He believes 147 pounds is an easier weight for him to make, obviously a more natural weight for him, but also stated that at 140 pounds, he's comfortable. He's found his groove. He knows he can make the weight comfortably in a safe way, that he can compete at the highest level. So listen, you're talking to a fighter who's more than willing to do what he has to do to get into the biggest opportunities, but one fight at a time. The one in front of him will be George Kambosos Saturday night. Let's see how he executes there. Maybe George Kambosos also given the opportunity to research himself and put himself in unification title fights, maybe even a rematch with the Teofimo Lopez. If he's able to win this fight and walk away with an IBF title, we may see that as well. There's all kinds of opportunities for either one of these fighters on the back end of a victory to this fight. I'm eager to see what's going to happen. Guys, go ahead, put it in the chat, put it in the comment section who you're leaning towards. What Hitchins are you expecting to show up? Will he cut the weight the right way? Will he over deliver and stop George Kambosos, or will he stay true to himself, not worry about what the naysayers are saying, and just deliver a victory and get on to the next step, right? It's your boy Claymore Rain, guys. Once, like I said before, if this is your first time tapping into the content, take an opportunity to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button as well. Let's help this video get in the algorithm. It's your boy Rain. This is that ATB Combat Media Show, and at this point, until the next one, we out.